What are Thunderous Raiden's biggest pros and cons? That's what I'm here to tell you today. My name is Juice, and let's get into it. For starters, she's a very effective double hydro driver. This is because she's able to reduce the ER requirements of a team, which means you don't have to run Favonius on your teammates, thus allowing them to run more offensive weapons. This then increases the overall damage output of your overall team, and makes everybody more comfortable to play on the whole, which is very nice when you consider that these teams are generally more burst-based. Raiden generally does a great job at driving more burst-based teams, because she's able to help reduce ER requirements so much. Units that typically feel very ER hungry, such as Xiangling, suddenly feel a whole lot more smooth to play. This is especially applicable to Double Hydro. Consider the main teammates that tend to run in this team: Lady Farina, Xingqiu, and Jilan. All three of those characters are units that are very dependent on using their elemental burst. Take Jilan for example. With Raiden around, instead of having to use an ER-based weapon, you're more easily going to be able to use whatever offensive weapons you have up your sleeve, which is very nice for taking advantage of the damage output that she's capable of. Even to this day, Raiden remains as one of the smoothest ways to play Double Hydro. So if that's something that highly intrigues you, then consider throwing some pulls the Inazuma Archon's way. I should also expound upon the fact that Raiden features some supportive capabilities. For instance, you're able to apply Electro off-field using Raiden's elemental skill, and if you build her on full EM, then you're able to use her as a pretty effective Hyperbloom teammate. She's also able to provide your entire team some elemental burst damage bonus. When you consider that a large portion of Raiden's teammates use elemental bursts in order to deal damage, this ends up being a pretty nice extra buff. This isn't even mentioning her core utility, restoring the team's energy whenever she uses her elemental burst. As for why that's so solid, we've already been over that. So whenever you pull for Raiden, you're not strictly getting an Electro DPS, you're also getting a character that's able to off-field, team, and provide support to your team in unique ways. Okay, that is all the good I have to say about Raiden Shogun. Now it is time to say the brutal, honest, cold hard truth. For starters, she has been outclassed by every other Electro DPS. If Coriander wasn't enough to convince you, then now we have Veressa, a main Electro DPS that is definitively stronger than Raiden in terms of damage output. To say that the cow wrestler completely annihilates the god of thunder herself would be quite the understatement. And besides, Veressa is not only a very strong Electro DPS, but she's a very strong damage dealer in general, who's on par with the current very high standard that we have that comes out of Notlon DPSs. A bar that a C0R1 Raiden is far below, and even a C2 Raiden just isn't that impressive compared to the average C0 Notlon DPS these days. Things were already starting to look bad for her in Fontaine, but goodness me, Notlon just really nailed things in the coffin. Now granted, Raiden no longer being the best Electro DPS, that's not a recent development. That has been the case for quite some time, because champion duelist Coriander has been the best one, right up until Veressa's release. She's able to play in a majority of the same teams that Raiden can, while doing a good chunk more damage. So if you're somebody that cares about collecting a good DPS of every element, I really would not pick Raiden Shogun as your Electro DPS. She just feels very weak compared to most modern main DPSs these days, and when you look at Electro DPSs, you have two to choose from that are better than her: Coriander and Veressa, one of which does have a good handful of teams, and the other, while more restrictive, is greatly on par with the current Notlon DPS standard. There's just nothing in particular that Raiden can bring you as an Electro DPS that you can't get out of the other Electro DPSs, outside of her energy-based utility, which you need her to be on-field for anyway. And that's the damning thing about her as a support. You need her to be on-field in order to make the most out of her energy-based utility. So she's usually delegated to being a driver, and not a very strong one at that. But honestly, I'm revoking her license. She can join Ayato in the corner as somebody who just can't drive. Even Blade from Honkai's Star Rail has a driver's license. That's how you know you're cooked. Then there's the fact that Raiden has a lot of teams. Now you would think that this would be a positive, right? After all, if you have plenty of strong teams to play in, that just offers you a lot more variety and makes the character more adaptable to a wider variety of situations. Generally, I would agree with you. That is normally a very positive quality. But with Raiden, I feel like people really overpraise this point, because it's not that impressive with her. It could also be a difference in values. If you consider the fact that Raiden can fit into so many teams a great positive of hers, then fair enough. But to me, there's one core issue here. All of the teams that she can fit into are mid, and would rather have another character in her place. Raiden Shogun is basically never the best in slot in any given team. This means that she does have versatility, but it isn't effective versatility. And yes, you can off-field her, primarily for Hyperbloom, which, I don't know about you, but I really wouldn't pull one limited 5-star character just for Hyperbloom when Kuki Shinobu is right there. And shoot, I'm not even somebody that likes playing Kuki, but I would definitely still save your Primogems and not get Raiden over one team archetype. Specifically, one where she's very replaceable, and every other team archetype she plays in, you can use someone else. Double Hydro, just use Hu Tao. Electro DPS, just use Clorox Bleach or Veressa. ER issues, just build more ER on your units. And sure, she can negate the need for you to use Favonius, but honestly, most of the time, using a better character over Raiden is going to be more of a damage increase to your overall team, as opposed to swapping your teammates' weapons. I will admit, yes, she is smooth in Double Hydro, and she is very, very easy to play, so I can understand wanting her for that particular quality, but outside of Double Hydro, there is no reason as to why you would really want to get Raiden in particular. I genuinely don't think that her having so many teams is a really big positive of hers. My general rule of thumb is that the character in question has to be best in slot in at least one team, and there just isn't really a particular team in which she is best in slot. Now, a fair argument you can make is that C0 Hu Tao just does not feel good to play, so some people would much rather just play Raiden Shogun and Double Hydro. Completely understandable. But, from a damage-based standpoint, you would rather use the Funeral Director. So yes, she does have a lot of teams, and that might be appealing to some people, but just keep in mind, she is not best in slot in any of them, and I think that is a pretty damning flaw. Especially in this day and age where we have so many good main DPSs to choose from. Notlon has been chock full of them, and Fontaine also dumped us with powerful main DPSs. And besides, we've gotten some really remarkable support characters in recent times too. Just look at Chef Pecorine. She literally saved Cryo. Raiden's kit just ends up feeling very unremarkable in the current age, and her high Primogem based investment just isn't that good. The best high Primogem based investment that you can get for Raiden is getting Lady Farina's Constellations, because at least that upgrades a large portion of your teams, if not all of them, and is much more of an account-wide upgrade. Here's the issue I take with C2 Raiden. Typically speaking, getting a C2 of a main DPS in the modern day tends to be a pretty good decision. It makes him a whole lot stronger, and you're going to absolutely annihilate all content with that DPS. No matter what's thrown your way, you will be absolutely fine, and I would say that that's been the case from 4.0 onwards. However, here's the thing. Raiden Shogun released in 2.0. Obviously, back then, her C2 was really good. It used to feel like a C6 at the time. It was so good for its time. But unfortunately, damage standards have just raised. C0 Raiden just feels weak now, and C2 Raiden feels okay at best. You need to C2 Raiden these days in order for her to feel anywhere near as good as a modern unit. And in that case, sure, her performance is still alright, but it's kind of not worth getting anymore. You'd rather put that investment into literally any other modern DPS. Because sure, while at C2 would be serviceable, getting C2 on literally any modern unit is going to feel infinitely better. It just feels like such a waste when you have such a vast array of options to choose from, and besides, her C2 only really benefits herself. If you're gonna get Archon Constellations, I'd rather get Lady Farina's or Moika's. And I don't really recommend getting the Hida's Constellations anymore, but if you're a big fan of the Sumeru units, then yeah, it's still a decent C2 to get. So it's not even like throwing a whole lot of Primogems her way would save her either. And then lastly, sure, she's a great double Hydro driver, and I do acknowledge that some people just don't want to put up with Hu Tao. However, you have a lot of options to choose from in general for double Hydro. It's not like Raiden is the only option. She might be one of the smoothest options, but she's not the best in slot for damage. And you can put a lot of characters in front of that team core in order to make it work. This is not really some Raiden exclusive thing. Noelle double Hydro, Kokomi double Hydro, the aforementioned Hu Tao double Hydro, a good chunk of the Pyro main DPS roster in general for that matter actually. I would honestly rather not mention Ayato at all, but I would even rather him at this point because of Escoffier. Riesli as well. And even if it's not this next character's best team, you can even use Coriander. So, for those reasons, I just genuinely don't think that Raiden is worth the pull anymore. Now here's the thing. I know, but a lot of people just don't care. People love this character. She is one of the most popular Genshin Impact characters of all time. Her reputation precedes her. So, if you're somebody that likes Raiden, is she still gonna clear? Yes. Just keep in mind that she is not the powerful behemoth that she used to be. Her days of meta glory ended a very long time ago. I just don't think she's worth getting when you have so many other options at your disposal. Get her if you really want to. She will still work, but I just don't recommend her from a meta standpoint at least. But how about yourself? Do you not care and you're gonna get a lot of copies of her anyway? Or are you gonna skip her? Let me know down below. I'd love to hear your thoughts. As always, I have a ZZZ second channel. Head on over and subscribe if you're interested in some fun, silly ZZZ content. I'd also like to mention that I stream on Twitch. I stream once a week, every week on Saturdays, start from free PMK time. Come along so we can play Wuthering Waves, ZZZ, and do some other fun stuff together. Hopefully this video was able to tell you Raiden Shogun's biggest pros and cons. This has been Juice, signing out. And all I can say about Raiden Shogun's meta value at this point is, I weep for the departed.